That's where we could do it first, huh?
Okay.
Let's see here.
Sherry,
It should be,
right?
let's see here.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please.
Regular meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, April 19th, 2021, 7 p.m. Partridge,
Here.
Holtmeyer,
Here.
Obermark,
Here.
Patke,
Here.
Pettit. Here. Scornia,
Here.
Sullentrop,
Here.
Wessels.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will all the council members answer if they have or have not read the minutes of the council meeting dated April 5th, 2021? Partridge,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Obermark,
Aye.
Patke,
Yes.
Pettit. Aye. Scornia,
Yes.
Sullentrop,
Yes.
Wessels.
Aye.
Having read the minutes, are there any comments or questions?
Make a motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Obermark, to approve the minutes from our last meeting dated April 5, 2021. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda.
Okay, is there anyone who would like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Obermark, seconded by Hydrich, to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the agenda. Thank you.
Citizen comments.
Is there anyone here this evening who would like to address the council on any item that is not on the agenda? Okay.
Unfinished business, certification of April 6, 2021 election results by the verification board.
Okay, so it's our responsibility this evening to certify the election results. Would anyone like to make that motion?
Make a motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Obermark, seconded by Hydrich, to do certification of the election results. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you certified the election. Thank you.
Priority items, mayor's presentations, appointments and reappointments. Resolution, thank you, Nick Obermark.
Oh.
Okay, Nick. Okay, well, as you all know, this evening we're saying goodbye to Nick. I didn't know you, knew who you were. Yeah. But I knew that you were very involved in the community and with your family and with your children's sports and things like that. So, and certainly, I have certainly enjoyed working with you. You've been a great councilman, and it's just been really good. I've enjoyed just everything about you, really. And I feel like you've always thought through any questions that we had or any concerns that we had, and you're a good thinker. So anyway. Oh, you don't get that a lot either? Well, okay. Well, I think you are. So a good thinker. So anyway, but we'd like to, we're sorry you're moving. So anyway, I mean, we're really darn. So anyway, so we have a resolution from the city of Washington, Missouri. Thank you, Nick Obermark. Whereas Nick Obermark served the city of Washington, Missouri as Ward 1 councilperson from April 2019 through April 2021. And whereas during his term of office, he has given his time and effort to serve the citizens of the city of Washington, Missouri. And whereas he has served faithfully in many capacities as councilperson and has played a vital role in the important work in the community. And whereas he has been an influence for good in the growth and progress of our community. And whereas he has been an influence whoops, I skipped that. Whereas Nick Obermark is entitled to just recognition for these efforts. Now therefore I, Sandy Lucy, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor, and speaking on behalf of the entire city council and all our citizens, do hereby tender to Nick Obermark this resolution extending our deep appreciation for his distinguished service as Ward 1 councilperson for the city of Washington. We wish him success in all future endeavors and order this resolution spread upon the records of the city of Washington, Missouri, and a copy thereof delivered to Nick Obermark. Signed, Sandy Lucy, Mayor, and Sherry Claycamp, City Clerk.
It's going to be a little difficult for me. I lived on the same block in town for 43 years, so to move is going to be a little interesting. One line here kind of caught me here, the growth and progress of our community. Just thinking a few things to say here tonight. The volunteers in this town are unbelievable, all the way from our churches and schools, our civic organizations, and especially the board members that serve on commissions that give this council guidance on their thoughts. They spend their time and passion. So that's one thing I was thinking about today. And another one is the city staff. There's one reason this town is as good as it is because our staff here is never happy with what we have. They always want something more, always something better. Never happy with just having enough or, hey, we got that project done, we can coast for a while. That's not the attitude up here. And that should be commended also. Board members, it's been a rough year or two, but the COVID definitely threw us a curve. I was hoping to use my powers to get out of trouble with Chief Menifee at least once, but COVID kind of kept that under control. So, but it's been great to serve with you. Knew a lot of you before I started. Knew a few more since I've been doing this, and Nate always agree, but everybody always ends up with the same goal as what we think is best for our town. So thank you and good luck.
Council comments?
Okay, do we have any comments?
I'd just like to say thanks to Nick. You know, the 12 years I've been here, we went through some pretty hard times, you know, but this last year was really hard on us, and you helped make some pretty tough decisions, and I commend you for that, and I'm really sad to see you go because the guy that's going to take your seat ain't much better. But thanks for serving.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks a lot, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
We have a motion by Obermark, seconded by Holtmeyer to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, we are adjourned. Thank you.
See you, buddy.
My pleasure.
See you, Nick. Today's the 19th.
Will, definitely.
Okay, so we might as well seat the new council member, or we did the call to order. and then do the swearing in? Is that how that works? Okay.
Special meeting of Washington, Missouri City Council, Monday, April 19th, 2021. Introductory items, oath of office, newly elected officials.
Okay. So we're going to do them individually, so that, so anyway, so Dwayne, do you want to come up first, being from Ward 1? Over here by the flag.
I, Dwayne Reed. Do solemnly swear and affirm that I possess all the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of Council Ward 1, that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Missouri, the provisions of laws of the state affecting certain cities of the third class, and the ordinances of the city of Washington, and faithfully demean yourself in office, so help you God.
I do. Last time I said that, I got in a lot of trouble, though.
All right, you want to go ahead and sign there for me?
Does Dwayne read that instead?
He thought he had some feet on.
I saw the look in your eye.
It's really supposed to be.
Come up for air.
She reads it.
Yeah.
Same thing. The main thing is, as I do, signs it, that's.
Okay. Mark, do you want to go next from Ward 2?
Nobody likes you.
Hey, Dwayne.
How are you?
Good.
Congrats.
Mark Lester. Do solemnly swear and affirm that I possess all the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of Council Ward 2, that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Missouri, the provisions of all laws of the state affecting cities from the third class, and the ordinances of the city of Washington, and faithfully demean myself in office, so help me God. Sign this. Yeah.
Congratulations again.
I'm ready. You talk.
I, Jeff Paxton,
I, Jeff Patrick,
do solemnly swear and affirm that I possess all the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of Council Ward 3, that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Missouri, provisions of all laws of the state affecting cities of the class, and the ordinances of the city of Washington, and faithfully demean myself in office, so help me God.
I do. Thank you.
And then go.
Congratulations. Back.
All right. Okay. Well, Dwayne, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And welcome back, the rest of you. Very good. So, okay, so now we'll move on to roll call and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hydrich.
Aye.
Holtmeyer.
Aye.
Patke.
Here.
Pettit.
Here.
Reed.
You bet.
Scornia.
Yes.
Sullentrop.
Here.
Wessels.
Yeah.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval and adjustment of agenda, including consent agenda. You have the collector's report summary for January 2021, investment report summary, January 2021, rabies clinic, May 13th and 20th, 2021, and pawnbroker business license Titan Hill LLC, doing business as Titan Hill Armory and Pawn, 1807 East 5th Street.
Okay, are there any questions or comments regarding the items on the consent agenda?
Make a motion.
We have a motion by Sullentrop, seconded by Holtmeyer, to approve the items on the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the items. Thank you.
Priority items, city council elections, election of mayor pro tem.
Okay, so this is our election evening. And so the first item is an election of mayor pro tem. So someone would like to nominate.
Your Honor, I would like to nominate Councilman Sullentrop for a one-year term of Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, and do we have a second for that?
Second.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to elect Steve Sullentrop as Mayor Pro Tem. Motion by Patke, seconded by Hydrich. Are there any other nominations? In hearing no further nominations, nominations for the office of Mayor Pro Tem are closed. All in favor of Steve Sullentrop as Mayor Pro Tem?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess say aye. All right. Opposed? Okay, so Steve, it looks like you're our new Mayor Pro Tem. Very good.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Election of council member to P&Z Commission.
Okay, we also, at this meeting, elect a council member to represent, to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So do we have any nominees for that position?
I'd like to nominate Mark Hydrich,
Okay,
one-year term.
okay.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to elect Mark Hydrich to the Planning and Zoning Commission, a motion by Sullentrop, seconded by Patke. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, hearing no further nominations, the Planning and Zoning are now closed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you have elected Mark Hydrich to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you.
The election of a council member to 353 Redevelopment Corporation.
Okay, so we always have one elected member, and then there's usually another appointed member to 353. So anyway, do we have any motions to elect our 353 member?
I nominate Councilman Sullentrop for a one-year term to 353 redevelopment.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Hydrich to elect Steve Sullentrop to the 353 Corporation by Hydrich, and seconded by Patke. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. Hearing no further nominations, the nominations to the 353 Corporation are closed. All those in favor of Steve Sullentrop being elected to the 353 Corporation, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, so you're the 353.
Thank you.
All right. And the last one is the Board of Health. And there a motion to elect?
I'd like to make a motion that for the Board of Health, I'd like to have Joe Holtmeyer, Jeff Patke, Mr. Dwayne Reed, and Mark Wessels on the Board of Health.
Okay.
I'll second that
One-year
motion.
term.
Okay. So we have a nomination by Sullentrop, seconded by Hydrich, to elect Joe Holtmeyer, Jeff Padke, Dwayne Reed, and Mark Wessels to the Board of Health. Any other nominations? Hearing no further nominations, the nominations for Board of Health are now closed. All those in favor of that group to the Board of Health?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so
Congratulations.
Jeff, Dwayne, and Mark, you're on the Board of Health.
How about that?
All right. Okay, anything else? Sherry, thanks for the cheat sheet. You're welcome. It's the smoothest that ever went. Okay.
Mayor's presentations, appointments, and reappointments. Mayor's proclamation, National Public Safety Telecommuters Week.
Okay. Do you have a group here? We have some. A group of one? Okay. That'll be good.
Better than none.
All right. I thought that was so nice. So, anyway, so last week, who's here?
This is Amanda Spurgeon.
Oh, hey, Amanda.
She's
Yeah,
been
recognize you with
a
your-
dispatcher for the city of Washington for 13 years.
What's her name?
Amanda Spurgeon.
So last week was telecommunicators behind the scenes making a difference. Okay, so it was telecommunicators week last week, April 11th through the 17th. And Elisa did a lot of different things with her team last week. Had dinner and gave away some little coupons and for fun things and stuff like that. But, you know, the telecommunicators, this group of individuals over there, they play a very, very important role. And last week, Tim Frankenberg, our fire chief, had sent an email, and I thought it was worth reading to the council tonight. So every year during the second week of April, the telecommunications personnel in the public safety community are honored. This week-long event initially began in 1981 as a time to celebrate and thank those who dedicate their lives to serving the public. Often referred to as the calm voice in the dark, they may be the most important person you never see. These folks are the first in the chain of emergency response and pathway between those in need and those who will render aid. Between the thin blue line for our law enforcement and the thin red line for the fire service and the thin white line is the thin gold line. The narrowest of lines, the thin gold line represents those who are rarely seen, but the voices are always heard. To our telecommunicators, we thank you for your 24/7, 365 days of service as dedicated public safety professionals. And that was what Tim had written. And it really struck me.
Oh, good.
I mean,
Yeah.
after all these years, but I mean, I just was like, wow, that was, it really struck me about, because you are all the voice of calm. And when somebody's on the other end screaming and yelling, you're calm and things like that. So thank you. Thank you. So we have a National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Move this way so I can talk to you a little bit. Okay, so. Okay, April 11 through 17, 2021. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Washington Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services and are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. Whereas public safety telecommunicators of the City of Washington have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now therefore I, Sandy Lucy, Mayor of the City of Washington, Missouri, do hereby proclaim April 11 through 17, 2021 as Telecommunicators Week in the City of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the seal of the City of Washington, Missouri, this 19th day of April 2021. Signed, Sandy Lucy, Mayor. There we go. Anyway, all right, good deal. Thank you. Did you want to say a few words?
Well, no, just thank you for doing that. And Amanda is just one of the 9 dedicated dispatchers that we have working for the City of Washington. They really do an outstanding job. And if you've never had the opportunity to come and visit us over there, let me know. Come and take a tour, see what we do, see what all the different things that keep this city running and keep us, in contact with our police fire. So thank you again.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks. Thank you.
Public hearings, rezoning 102 East 2nd Street from R3 multifamily to C3 central commercial.
Okay, Sal.
Good evening. This first request tonight is for a rezoning of 102 East 2nd Street. This is located at the intersection of 2nd and Market Street, just a couple blocks from where we're standing right now. It is currently a 4-unit multifamily structure zoned R3 on that eastern side of Market. It does have access both to Market and 2nd Street. The property here is zoned R3 multifamily, so I know these colors kind of run together here, but this darker blue is all R3 multifamily. This whole district is not necessarily multifamily, but in '89 when we did our zoning district, this area all got zoned multifamily for whatever reason. There is quite a few structures here that are multifamily, but it is kind of a mix of what we'd consider grandfathered single family and then multifamily uses that fit into that district. This lighter blue is what they're requesting, so there is something catty corner here, but not directly adjacent. This lighter blue is our C3 downtown commercial district. It's our central business district that allows for mixed uses in the area. It also allows for not requiring off-street parking, because we don't often like to encourage that in our downtown district, because if we made people do off-street parking on a zero lot line, they would most likely have to buy a historic structure to tear it down, which is something we want to discourage. So those are two benefits of being in this district, that it's mixed use. You can have residential and commercial in one building, as well as you don't have to have off-street parking. The applicant is requesting to move into this C3 downtown district. For that reason, not necessarily the parking, they're going to add parking per their application, but they would like to put their offices on the main floor and then renovate the top floor into one apartment, is what they stated at Planning and Zoning last week. And if you saw my staff report in the packet this week, staff did recommend denial of this rezoning, really for one main reason, that it is not directly adjacent to the existing C3 district. It is catty corner here, it's close, but it would technically be a spot zoning. This entire block here is R3, and we like to set a precedent of not allowing that C3 district outside of the downtown as much as we can. I'll show some examples here where it has happened in the past, but the reason being is that that's the intent of that district is for it to be the central downtown district. It is not written into code of where the boundaries of that would be, because over the years it has expanded. But in my eyes, or in the staff's eyes, is that if you don't draw the line of it being directly adjacent to it, where do you draw the line? This is one property removed, which is as close as you can get without being adjacent. But then if in a month, if someone down here asks for it, is that still close enough? And so in our eyes, we just like to draw a straight line and say, hey, if it's not adjacent, we aren't going to recommend that. I did throw out a alternative in my staff report that would take a little bit longer, and Planning and Zoning did review it last week, but the idea would be if we can add an overlay to our zoning code. If Planning and Zoning and Council sees that there is a possibility that there are certain areas that could allow for mixed use outside of what the C3 is, say, hey, this area is adequate or fits the intent of this downtown district but maybe isn't zoned C3, we could do an overlay district that encompasses this area as well as a couple others. And that would kind of allow for some of these uses to still go in this area, but without having to get it rezoned and worry about spot zoning. That is one alternative that would have to go through Planning and Zoning. There would have to be some homework done. I can't imagine something we could get done within 2 or 3 months, really, because I think there would be some discussions with Downtown Inc., Planning and Zoning, and we'd be going back and forth a little bit before we drew those boundaries. A little bit of history of this. We have approved some C3 spot zoning is what I'll call it in the past. 2 occasions that I could find. One here on Fifth Street. This is right next to Quality Copy. This property has access to Oak and Fifth here, and it's the tire facility. They had to get rezoned to C3, I believe, in 2012, and then asked for a special use permit to put that industrial use in. That was approved, and that was one circumstance. The other was Rhine River. Now, in this circumstance, they were having a very specific plan. It needed, at the time, we didn't have the same non-planned or the same planned mixed planned residential that we have now in our code. This was done in 2010, but they needed the 0 lot lines for those townhomes at Rhine River. So they requested, and it was approved for that rezoning here. Now, I would say these are kind of different circumstances where, in this case, I would actually argue that that overlay district, if we were to create it, would go out to this boundary, because Rhine River and our other TIF, I think, are pretty easy to argue that those are kind of our anchors of Front Street for where our entertainment and mixed-use district really is at. And so I don't think it was inappropriate to approve this here by any means, because that was the zoning that we had available at the time in the code. It's just an example of where, if we were to do an overlay district, this would be something we would include in it, as well as this whole block here where the corncob pipe factory is, and there's a law firm here. This is all still zone industrial, when in reality, if that's ever going to get redeveloped, it'll probably be mixed use, and it should be C3. It's just the owners have never actually requested to come in, because it's been, the pipe factory has been in use for 150 years, so there was no need for them to ask for that. And so that overlay district, I'm just kind of throwing out to the side, is an alternative to kind of fixing that problem and saying, hey, this is a district that we allow mixed uses in, whether it's C3 or not. If the person wants to come in and rezone for C3, great. But if they are right adjacent to this area, they could be in that. And the reason I think I said there would be a lot of discussions with downtown, this wouldn't be a perfect square. We wouldn't say, you know, we often say downtown is 5 by 5 square blocks. Well, in this case, I wouldn't recommend having this area be in that mixed use, because there's a lot of single family or 2-family even right here that necessarily offices wouldn't be appropriate. And so we would have to kind of draw these boundaries and probably right down Main Street here and then go down Cedar. But again, that's something that P&Z has recommended to me to come back with at a later date. And so we will go back to them next month and talk about what those boundaries should be. And I will have a report for you. Most likely not in June, I would say. I would bet that P&Z would go back and forth a couple times. Most likely in July, with a possibility if P&Z wants to do that. The reason I preface all that is that P&Z did vote on this specific rezoning after we did have a long discussion about that overlay district, but there was a vote to go ahead and approve, a motion to approve the rezoning. The reason being, I believe the motion was Commissioner Saruti Wacker made the motion, and that it is catty corner here, and in her argument was that their intended use of office on the ground floor and a single family or one unit up top would not be out of character for the area. I did agree with that in my staff report, that their end use I don't think is detrimental to the surrounding properties by any means. It's just drawing a line and where are we going to say it's contingent to C3 was my big concern. The intended use, I do agree that it's not going to harm the surrounding properties. They made a motion to approve that. It passed 6-0 with one abstaining, or 7-0 with one abstaining. I guess there's 8 there. And so I just kind of want to throw that out there. We did talk about the overlay district. That is something we're going to bring back just to kind of allow to try and not have this happen in the future. But regardless, they did vote unanimously plus one abstention to approve this rezoning. So.
2 other things, if I could add. Sal, are you done? I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Go ahead.
One is, that would be the only property that you would have within that block that could be used for commercial use. Every parcel within there is being actively used as residential right now. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if you do vote it to C3, as Sal said, if they want to do office space on the first floor and an apartment on the second floor, they can renovate that entire unit to office space at any given time down in the future. And that would not come back before this board. That's just something of coming in, getting an occupancy through the building department to go ahead and do that. So even with their intent of doing a office on the first floor and maybe residence on the second, you do have the possibility that you could have a lot more commercial usage there. They would not be required to go ahead and provide off-street parking. Just want to make sure that that's very clear.
So Sal, if we were going to do like an overlay or something, would you do that entire block, or how would that work? Suggested overlay, possibly.
We would have to determine where it's at. I would just, from my first review of this, I would have to, really sit down with our Downtown Inc. and our staff and look at where the boundaries would be. I wouldn't go, I would say any property that has access to Stafford, that would be to Market here, that would be a very easy boundary to draw. Say, hey, if you have a parcel that has access to Market, that is the eastern boundary of downtown. And that's kind of what we've always used, Market to Stafford, Front to Fifth, in general terms of downtown. But I think as you went, this may be easier because you could just say, hey, Market Street, and I know what Darren's right, there's some single family even here in this multifamily that's grandfathered in. But long term, I'm just saying, if you're going to look at the whole point of an overlay is the long-term potential redevelopment, is that going to hurt the surrounding area? I don't necessarily know if when you have C3 on Market, actually past Market down here, and it's just one block up. Oop, I was holding 2 buttons at once. John, would you turn that back on for me? Just the presentation.
Oh,
Just full screen.
lost you.
There you go. So, and then this is where we get more complicated when you get further west. That's where we'd have to figure out what those boundaries are. And
Okay.
that's where P&Z came forward and said yes, we would like to do that in the future still, so I'm still going to be exploring that and figuring out what those boundaries are, but they were of the opinion that this parcel, approving it now, was not going to cause a detriment to the future, was what they were founded on, so.
Sal, did the neighbors reply to the notification? Any feedback at all?
No, and we had 0 comments at planning and zoning.
So I respect really the way you follow the way the zoning has been laid out. And that's why I was curious about why they made an exception here. You kind of explained it, but I think when you take the time and the energy to lay these things out, I just feel like an exception should be for overwhelming kinds of reasons. So.
Yeah, like a master plan like Rhine River was, I think, kind of a circumstance like that.
So I would tend to agree with the staff that I'm not sure this is something that.
Well, Sal, if we talk about an overlay, there's no guarantee it's going to include this property. Is that right?
No, that is correct.
And if we do have an overlay, we still go back to Darren's point, Darren's point, where it could be commercial in the basement as anticipated, but it could also be commercial upstairs also, even in the overlay. That doesn't stop that.
Well, we could write the overlay district however we want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I would propose, just to make it simple, is if you're going to have an overlay district, you match it to what C3 allows and just say, hey, look, this is actually where we see the potential boundaries of C3, because we can't go in and rezone other people's property. They have to request it. But we could do an overlay district and say, hey, you are outside the C3 boundary right now, but if you were to come into C3 later, you know what I mean, that it allows for it, so.
I'm just letting you know that if you go forward with what the applicant is requesting, you could have the entire structure occupied as commercial with 0 off-street parking.
Correct, and I understand your point. I mean, right now we have 4 apartments there, off-street parking. It could potentially be an office or 2 or more. If we allow this one, then the next door neighbor could do the same thing. And then we have off-street parking for, again, potentially half the block could be a business for, I mean, we couldn't,
Now, we would not require it if it was approved, but they did, I just want to, full disclosure, they did mention, the applicant mentioned that they were going to be putting off-street parking to the rear here. But if it goes C3, we don't require it anyway, so they could change their mind and we wouldn't make them hold to their word that they said at planning and zoning.
Darren, have we ever done a rezoning agreement?
You cannot.
You cannot conditionalize a
law.
rezoning.
Okay.
You can create a mixed-use district, which is what, what we've done in the past. So for example, if you go up and down Jefferson Street from the downtown district, and you go, as we've seen it over the years, from 8th Street going south, you've got a mix of stuff. And we had C4 zoning, I think. I don't know what the applicable one is today, but I mean, over time, as some of those houses were converted to residential, et cetera. But in that instance, they did have to provide off-street parking. They did not request C3. C3, you're not required to provide those off-street parking spaces. Now, you could also argue in the same thing with a 4-unit apartment complex. I don't know, do they have any off-street parking for the tenants that are?
Not now, no.
Today? So, I mean, arguments could be made about that too, that, you've got 4 units that you've got available to go ahead and rent. You can see the cars parked there just from the aerial.
No off-street parking.
That's right. And right now, they just don't provide it. It's grandfathered in. It's been that way forever. But if you go to C3, you could have commercial uses and you could have more parking up and down Market Street. And again, I think it sets the precedent, as somebody else said, that you could go ahead and request some additional parcels along Market Street to go ahead and be, what premise would you have to deny one just going to the south, the house right there to the south if they wanted it?
Sal, are there any other streets, let me get this right, east of Market, that connect off of Market that are the C3? So like, is there anything else, like on Main Street? What's the next, 4th Street?
You have down there by where the...
This is the furthest east of C3.
That's the old Bowl and Feed store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where the newest townhomes are. We rezoned that last year, but with the preface that it was directly across the street from existing C3. So that was the argument, saying, hey, we're just expanding the boundary, and we thought that was perfectly logical. Honestly, if someone wanted to come in and redevelop this block right here, it's not, I think that would be perfectly logical to do C3 there, because if they came with a plan, say, hey, well, this is what we're thinking. And that's where I'm saying, if I were to say we're going to create a boundary, I'm thinking planning for the long term. If we keep seeing these type of proposed developments grow, our downtown borders are going to expand. Why not kind of create a quasi border? Not to say people can't request C3 beyond that in the future, but it at least allows for these mixed uses without having to do any spot zoning. We're not putting ourselves in a situation where we're creating a precedent. We're creating a boundary.
And if Market was rezoned, if that happened, if Market was rezoned between 2nd and Main, then this property would be adjacent to.
Correct.
Okay, but that's, okay, thank you.
Yep.
What about 4th Street? 4th and Market, is that all residential
Go a
also?
little further south, can you
So
go further south?
4th, no, so this is C1
Okay.
here along 4th Street.
But what about east of Market on 4th? I'm just trying to see what,
Yeah, I don't go that far.
sorry.
I think you've got the same.
East of
R3
Still have, it's
I
still
think you
that-
got the same R3 zoning of what
Yeah.
we have,
Okay, thank you.
the rest of it.
I think it is strange to have all this as R3 because it's a weird you're saying that's all multifamily, and it's definitely not. That's, this whole block here of darker blue is already problematic because you have so many grandfathered uses. So, you know,
You've got a
you're
mix,
gonna have a lot of issues.
Single-family, two-family, multifamily,
Yeah.
all throughout that area.
In reality, I think there could be an argument to be made to just have an overlay district that encompasses all this dark blue, because I would say over 50% of that is not in conformance. And that's where I'm gonna go back to P and Z. Maybe we do look at a wider district to address that. I mean, that's why there's a lot of this R2 overlay, I believe, that Darren did years ago, because that was the same issue. People were wanting to do single family into a zone multifamily. You do an overlay district that you don't have to come to us every single time.
We did that for that area, and then what he's not showing is on the west, over there
west.
by the shoe factory, that portion of town along High Street, same thing. It was zoned, at that time, it was zoned two-family, and the city was requiring people to come in, even if you wanted, and this is back in the late
Sal, if they
90s.
had, this business was there and they don't have any off-street parking, they got 15, 20 employees and they're gonna be parking in front of the residential, homes all along there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of coming with a C3 district. Now, they have stated they have 6 employees that's planned, but as Darren said, that's the current user. There could always be a future user that has 15 employees, so.
So the staff is recommending a denial, and planning and zoning approved it?
Correct.
Correct.
Unanimously. Was plus 1 abstention. So,
Did you explain it to planning and zoning the way you explained it to us?
same presentation.
He's got witnesses here.
Well, Mark, you were at the planning and zoning meeting. What was the discussion there? I mean, he said that it was adjacent or diagonal from it. Was that really the consensus, that was okay after that?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there was really not a lot of conversation. There was nobody else opposing it, neighbors.
Now, I will say, I don't see the applicant here. They also stood up and made their case, so that may have helped, something that I didn't say. I'm just throwing that out there.
I'll be honest, I read this on Saturday and thought this was just fine, and the more I think about it, the more it seems to be like a little bit more of an issue than I thought. You know, a unanimous decision by planning and zoning usually makes my decision for me, but after hearing this, there's so many options, things that can go wrong there, and if we don't keep consistent, we're gonna run ourselves into problems. I think that's, so, yeah, there's a sway in my opinion here.
Yeah, the zoning goes with the property. This business could fold in a year and then you got something else in there with a lot of employees.
Yeah.
Now, I appreciate Darren giving us the information on what they want to do with something else besides the first floor level. I mean, if we do it here and they start doing it other places in Washington, that's going to create a problem later too.
Well, that was my biggest rub with it. It's only one property removed, but if we're saying that's close enough, then where do you draw the line if this person wants to do it or 2 blocks over? And that was my biggest concern. But I will say that if this property was C3, I may have had a different, you know, it's right there. Then you have an argument that it's not spot zoning, but that's just not the case.
Well, and your idea of an overlay, coming back later with an overlay, you know, to me, that makes sense. Then you have a plan that you're looking at and it's laid out, rather than, as you say, this spot stuff going on.
Yeah.
You could at least address the parking. If you
Right.
perceive that as a problem for the future, you could at least have some district that would require some off-street parking to go ahead and be.
You recommended denial to planning and zoning and they voted for it.
Yeah, it happened. Didn't hurt my feelings. It's okay.
That happens every once in a while. Every once in a while, that happens.
You guys get to vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Surprised the applicant's not here because he was here for the meeting before this, so
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
know.
if they got
He
their,
was gonna be here.
I think they may have got their wires crossed. I don't know.
okay, so is there any, can we see if anyone else? is
Yes,
here?
I'm done.
Are you done? Did anyone else have any more questions of Sal? Okay, is there anyone here who is here tonight for this issue, who would like to address the council? Okay, doesn't look like it. Okay, so any other discussion? Otherwise, we can entertain a motion to accept this into the minutes?
Yeah, I can really see a problem down the road with residential now, the problem that they have on Market and Second Street with parking now. I mean, if you have a business in there during the daytime and people living above you, that's still going to create more problems for parking.
Make a motion. Make a motion, send it on.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Scornia, to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance rezoning 102 East Second Street from R3 multifamily residential to C3 central commercial in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
No.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
No.
sullentrop,
No.
Wessels,
No.
Scornia,
No.
Pettit,
No.
Reed.
No.
Okay, by your vote, you failed. Failed? Is that the word I used? You failed the ordinance? Okay, the ordinance did not pass. Thank you.
Rezoning 1222 West 9th Street from R1A Single Family Residential to R1B Single Family Residential.
All right, this one is a little bit even more
Just a
complicated.
second.
Oh,
I
sorry.
do have a quick question. Is the 6-month rule where they can reapply again, or what, how's that work?
Yeah, they cannot apply for the same application for 6 months, but if we did the overlay district within the 6 months, it wouldn't matter because we would be changing the code.
So they're not here to represent themselves, so.
They're not, and
they
I
can
will,
reapply in 6 months.
I will say, I mean, they could start the residential renovation upstairs already. I think that's-
Absolutely.
So,
That's well within the code to do that.
I don't think you need a motion, but I think Sal's going to go forward with the overlay
yes,
possibility.
it's already on the agenda for P&Z next month.
Right.
I just don't, I don't know, anticipate sending it to council right after that. I bet P&Z will have to look at it for a month or two, so.
The motion came out of Planning and Zoning that night to look at the overlay,
Correct.
or the direction. I don't know if it was a
Yeah.
motion. It was the direction came from.
I'll have it on the agenda, so.
Okay.
All right, this next request, so this first one is just for the rezoning. There is a preliminary plat later on the agenda. This is a little bit more of a complicated situation just because of our zoning code has changed over the years. So this property is located, this is the Hanover Place development. This is West 9th Street, just below the Casey Hall property to the south here, and then Clay Street's just to the west. So currently, this entire property is zoned, and the property we rezoned is to the west here. But all these lots are zoned senior community district. Prior to 2017, we had this zoning district that allowed for a higher density, smaller lot development that was strictly for 55 and up. And it basically was a planned district. They had to come with a plan. They had to show exactly what they were going to build. And then it actually designated by our zoning code that it had to be 55 and up. To be honest, that was something we were never going to be able to really enforce. But we didn't ask people at occupancy what their age was. And so it really wasn't realistic to keep that zoning code. So in 2017, when we rehauled our entire zoning code, we eliminated that zone district and got basically replaced it with our PDR, planned residential. But that requires a 1.5 acre request to do. You have to have at least 1.5 acres to request that. And there are a lot more steps now that you have to, a lot more things you have to submit up front. So with all that being said, this development can still go forward in its current zoning. It's still obviously, that zoning exists, and it's how it was approved, but no one can request that zoning any longer. That zoning doesn't exist. So the applicant came to city staff, they came to a couple site plan meetings to discuss this and let us know that they are purchasing a little bit less than half an acre, this back portion of this property to the west, and they wanted to add 2 units, 2 more lots to this development. And they asked that, can we go senior community? And they said, no, obviously that doesn't exist anymore. There was the question of should they rezone the entire thing to planned residential and just resubmit this whole development and bring the entire thing into conformance. Well, the problem is you have to have every single property owner sign off on that zoning, and because they would be, some of these are already built and sold, and we can't require that. If they want to come in and say, hey, we don't want to have to come in rezoning, that wouldn't fly. And we couldn't just rezone this portion because it's not an acre and a half. So it was actually by staff recommendation to this applicant on which kind of route to go with this. And so the direction was to rezone this portion in the back to R1B, single-family residential. So it's R1A now. Rezone it to R1B, which just allows for the smaller lot size. So right now it's got 10,000 square foot minimums, and the R1B allows 6,000 square foot. That is very similar to all these lots here. As you get around the cul-de-sac, they get a little bit bigger, but some of these are right around 6,000 square feet. So it matches what they had in the senior community, which we no longer offer. The other issue with this is that this isn't necessarily anything that you guys would vote on because it has to go to the Board of Adjustment, but it was in my staff report in full transparency, is that all of these homes technically do not meet the setback for the R1B district. We typically require 25 feet in the front, 25 feet in the rear, but the senior community district allowed 10 feet in the rear, and then in this case, they were approved for 15 to 18 feet in a range in the front along Hanover Way. And so in order for them to come in and add 2 more lots, they have to get it rezoned, get a preliminary plat to add the 2 lots, and ask for a variance, which I know is a lot of complicated applications. 3 different boards technically have to review that. But because we don't have senior community district anymore, and because the property isn't large enough to get rezoned to planned residential, that was my recommendation. I thought that was the best way that our code allowed for this request to even happen. So that's kind of the backstory of how we got here. So this is just the exhibit that was in your packet of the tract they're wanting to rezone. It's about 20,000 square feet, so a little bit less than half an acre. And it's directly adjacent to their existing one. You can see what the plat looked like before, or what it looks like today. They are requesting to add, and again, this is just the public hearing for the rezoning, but I'll kind of give all the information now so we have it. They're requesting to add 2 more homes to this development. And so right now you got lots 5, 6, 7. They're wanting to take out the right-of-way here and add 5B, so it'd be 5A, 5B, 5C, and then you have 6 and 7 here. So I think I originally said 3 lots. I forgot when you were removing 5 already existed. They're just naming it 5A, then 5B, and 5C. So it's really only 2 more homes. And this layout here, you can see the lot size and dimension is very similar to what was approved in the first phase. It's just we no longer have that district to allow that. So that's the variance that they're asking for. My goal was to have them have the Board of Adjustment meeting done last week after P&Z. So by the time we got to you all, it was already decided. All that you would have to vote on was the zoning and the plat. Unfortunately, that's only a 5-person board. We had 2 people unable to make it within 24-hour notice, and so we had to reschedule. So I just kind of want to throw that out there that we're not voting on there's nothing on the agenda tonight for the setbacks. It's strictly for the platting and the zoning. But for the actual plat, you can see they are requesting to extend this drive here. The improvements will actually go further, but they had this through our discussion had to be less than 150 feet. That's like 103 feet here, so they can expand that more within the fire code requirements. And then actually extend those improvements. That's a 30-foot road. We do allow that in our code as long as it's less than 10 homes. And so there's no concern there. They will have to have no parking on one side. I think they determined it will be on the north side here, so there's a better radius as you pull in. And so those 2 aspects meet the code. The lot sizes that they're adding are more than 6,000 square feet, so there's no issue there. They do meet, if it's rezoned, they meet the new zoning requirement. Really the biggest question is, should we be allowed, because it's a lot of changes on paper with the rezoning and the platting and everything, but in reality I think the crux of the request is, should they be permitted to add 2 more homes to this development. We recommended approval of that request, given the fact that you already have an existing development in this area that is single-family residential. They are going to have their own indentures in here that we do not enforce, but it will match the existing indentures they have here for the senior community, no rentals and all that to get brought up with planning and zoning. And so staff did recommend approval of the rezoning of this half acre as well as this plat. Again, that plat is on your agenda later. And then honestly, the variance as well, because of the fact that it is matching, it's not out of order of the existing development that exists today. And again, if it was already senior, if we still had senior community, they'd be able to expand that. Actually, the Board of Adjustment would allow them to expand that if they even wanted to. And it'd be pretty simple.
Is that cul-de-sac already in?
Yes, this cul-de-sac's already in. So again, if it was built after 2017, we would require a larger cul-de-sac, but, you know, codes change, and that's just, it is what it is. This was requested, I think, in the end of 2015, and then started in early 2016. Because I started in February, and I think it was already well on its way. So that's all I have. I'll answer any questions you have. There were quite a few comments from planning and zoning, so I'm sure we'll hear from the applicant and the neighbors as well. So, they voted. They did vote unanimously to approve both the plat and the rezoning. I apologize. Planning and zoning did vote unanimously to approve.
Okay, hold on just a minute, okay? Just
But-
hold on.
Yes, and I will just answer. So the road will continue. That was, I think, an oversight on this drawing. The improvements will have to go further to give access to these homes here. So you can't have the improvements by fire code more than 150 feet. I guess they could actually, John can explain this better than I can. They can build the improvements, correct?
Yeah, the fire code allows for a maximum 150 feet without a fire turnaround. So you can actually build it further than that as long as you can access the homes. So for example, if they built it 200 feet long, the fire lane still is only 150 feet. So you have to put an approved turnaround at the end of it. So Sal hit on it. I mean, they have to get access to the homes. So it would definitely have to be built at least to the garages to do so.
Yeah. I think the original thought was maybe they could have driveways come right off to the stub, and then this would just be less maintenance and less pavement for the city. But they can extend that up to 150 feet, and the applicant did make clear last week that this is 103 feet right now, so they have the capacity
Well,
to
they
extend
would
that.
have to for that last house on the left.
Correct.
Correct.
Will that be a private street, Sal?
No. We do not allow private streets anymore unless it's in a planned development. And Hanover Way is not private.
Fact, it is a city, publicly owned and maintained street.
Are there any other questions from council members? Okay, it's a public hearing, so is there anyone here who would like to address the council on this item?
My name's Kurt Understall, for the record. I'm the developer
Can you
of,
pull down your mask, please?
oh, sorry. I'm the developer of Hanover. We did that, as Sal mentioned, in 2015. And at the time, you had senior housing development. The market dictated that people were kind of tired of duplexes and they wanted villas. So we looked for a way to be able to do that, and the senior housing district allowed for that. So basically, your style of construction of two homes with a wall down the middle, we just took that same project and just split it and set it on a lot individually. So that's why the issues on some of the setbacks and things like that. But kept it to 55 and older. Had a meeting with the folks down there in Hanover that are living there now. They were adamant that they wanted it a part of their development to be able to control it and to have it that way. And I said, not a problem. So it's our intent to add these two lots to Hanover's restrictions, so that it'll be a 55 and up. That no longer can be controlled by the city, but they want to control that. So we'll deed restrict it to be 55 and older villa lots. In a nutshell, like I said, I know there were some concerns last month about spacing. These lots actually got more spacing than an R2 development that abuts to this in duplexes. They're actually going to tighter buildings than we are. And then additionally, Fran, back when we did this, I spoke with Fran about purchasing this land, and at that time, Fran didn't want to sell. And we're getting ready to build in the corner down there, and I just went back to her and said, you know, kind of now or never kind of thing is once we close that lot 5 in there, you really can't access that unless you tear her house down. But, you know, she's sitting on basically an acre of ground, and she said, you know, I really don't want all that land. I don't want to maintain it. So we were able to add that little L-shaped road there, add the 2 extra villa lots, and really spread that out down in that valley below the KCs. So we feel it's a win-win. It's a better improvement. You know, as Sal mentioned, I think he pretty much covered the highlights. We're actually larger than the 6,000 minimum. She's going to retain her home on a half acre. She's got a house and a garage. That doesn't change. I spoke with the residents above there, which I don't see them in a stands tonight, but they were concerned about, you know, the setbacks to their residential on a single family. And I said, you know, we'd be glad to build a evergreen berm there and work with them. There's really, because I guess what I think some of the folks don't understand is that, you know, if Fran sells or Fran stays there or somebody buys her house, it's single family residential, 10,000 square foot, and that's a 1 acre lot. So, you know, down the road somebody could tear the house down and build right back in there. All we're doing is building villas. We're not building no big monstrosity barn. We're not building no big building back there. We're just keeping them single family villas, standalone, and they will match exactly what's at Hanover. You're welcome to drive in there. Probably most of you've seen that development. It's all carefree living, if you will, brick and siding, and they get their grass cut every morning or every Thursday. Jerry's here. He's with the Homeowners Association. So basically, that's in a nutshell. We're just wanting to add 2 more lots and build more senior housing. And as Sal mentioned, I would be asking for that, but we didn't have an avenue when the code got changed from 17, 18, whenever it was, to now it's R1B. We do have, I guess, one ability to rezone part of it to an R4, but really R1B based on staff makes the most sense. So,
Are you willing to extend that road?
yeah, and again, I'm glad that was great you brought that up, Joe. We showed that, and I'll take the blame for that. I thought the requirement was to show what the city's going to maintain. In actuality, we're going to build the street further down. It just won't be maintained by the city. So, to your point, we're going to build a road to get into the driveway, but we were showing that gray line as that city street, and then we would just build it and maintain it as a private piece of street. So, but it's I think the 150 or whatever it is. So,
Yeah, that's a maximum. And again, those things all get worked out during
yeah,
planning review.
I think we
So-
showed 103 because again we met with staff and the fire. Mr. Holtmeyer I think was there, and he said, yeah, that's fine. I can pull a hose from that length. So we were just trying to clarify what it would be city street to meet the fire code. So, all right.
Are there any other questions of council members? Or Kurt?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Oh, you need to come up. Yeah, come on up and give us your name, your address.
My name's Jerry Dickhouse, and I live in Hanover, 910 Hanover Way.
Okay.
The only thing I'm concerned about is, he said the road would stop at 103 feet, and then he would maintain the rest of it. Why wouldn't the city maintain that extra 20, 30, 40 feet, whatever it is?
As currently drawn, they have to have access to to the garages of the homes. So if it was built the way it's shown here, we would not give building permits for the 2 at the end. So we would require them to extend it to the driveway. So it just needs to be
Are
drawn.
you asking why won't the city maintain it?
Yeah,
That's
why-
what he's asking.
Yeah,
Why won't the city?
And we will.
maintain it all the way?
That's what I'm trying to say. Well, long way to get there, but yes, we will require that to be extended to the end of the garage, and we will maintain it.
Okay, because otherwise, if the homeowners.
I understand that, yes, yep.
And another thing is, my lot is right across from that road going there. I want to make sure that Kurt takes care of the water problem. He's supposedly pledged to put a berm between the houses above us, so I want him to pledge that he'll take care of that water problem coming off that road, which he said he would, but you know what I'm saying? When it rains, water comes off that hill like you wouldn't believe. So my driveway is straight across from that new road going in.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the water problem right now. Obviously,
Well, there
when,
is really no problem right now, but
Okay.
when that road goes in, I'm afraid 30
Okay.
feet of gravel or 30 feet of paved road, there's going to be a lot of water.
understand. And yes, we will definitely take that into consideration and review that once the final design of the roadway and stormwater and those things are all presented to city staff to take care of. So,
Okay.
yes,
That
we can
sounds
definitely do
good.
that.
That's all I got.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Yes?
My name is Robert Stevens. I live at 1312 Apple Blossom Lane, which is just adjacent on the left-hand side of that drawing up there. The questions, I guess, that we posed and have continued to be concerned about is the distance between that end of that house, and they don't show the condos and the single developments, but basically they're talking about being able to be within 10 to 12 feet of that line of the property, and that puts us within about another 7 or 8 feet of us, which isn't any farther from where I am to where basically that screen is. And with that kind of distance, it just is really too much. You're trying to put 3 houses in a row in a space that was originally designed for 2. And they're talking about the lots being basically the same, but they're ever so much closer because of the changes in the distance between and where they're being set back. I really have a lot of problems with that, and the other people that live up there are going to really be in a position where when you step out the back door, you're going to be within 15 feet of somebody's house. And I think that's really a house too much, or a bridge too far, as the famous movie once said. But this extension, if it was limited to the one house on each side, I think that would be certainly a very, very logical kind of deal. On the other side, they're going to have 25 feet for the lot that's immediately across the road. And I can't see why, if you didn't have that second lot, you could have that same 25 feet that's on the upper side on the south side. And so we just ask, I guess, that you consider the fact that there are 12 families living in that Apple Blossom Lane. There are another 6 families on Lilac. Each one of them has signed a petition, which was given to the council for the
Planning and zoning?
zoning last week, and we all objected to this with the same problems, that you're really in a place where there's nothing between where you're doing and what the houses they're building. They're literally sitting back to back. And I just ask each one of you, you're all homeowners. Every one of you owns a home here in Washington, or you wouldn't be sitting on this council. But what is it like if you would step out the back door and you'd see 15 to 18 feet, a home sitting there where you once had nothing but grass and a beautiful green spot? So I just ask the council to take into effect that, and that everybody that is sitting on the subdivision has signed that petition. I don't think there's any doubt of where we would like to see you do that, but obviously we'd like that to be considered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
What did we say the setback was on these homes?
Well, I kind of want to address that because they're not requesting a setback variance to the side here. So the homes that they're saying that they're going to be in the backyard here, Our code already only requires 12 feet between homes, so 6-foot side yard setbacks. This could be developed on today, and they could be 6 feet from that property line already. That what is being proposed is not asking to get any closer than what could already be done today. And so we just want to make that clear.
Doesn't Apple Blossom have a 30-foot rear yard setback or rear yard requirement already?
It's 25 feet per the zoning code. If their plat has their own requirements, that's their own plat. But that zoning has a 25-foot, where Apple Blossom is and Lilac, they have a 25-foot rear and a 6-foot side, just like everyone else. These have 6-foot sides on hand. The purple has 6-foot sides. Every residential in the city limits, no matter what zone it is, unless it's downtown, has 6-foot side yard setbacks. And so that was kind of part of our argument that what's being requested with this plat here is not asking to put homes abnormally close to other existing homes. And I don't want to be crude, but it's kind of that if you want to look at 5 acres and buy 5 acres is kind of the argument there. It's if this is a developable property, that 6 feet is always the standard between homes, 12 feet between homes.
It would be 6 feet between the property lines, not
Correct.
6 feet between the homes.
Correct. 12 feet between the homes
12
is
feet,
the
between
minimum.
But
6 feet from the property line.
6 feet from
And
the
that's-
property
that's
line.
every
And if their
residential.
property line goes back 25 feet, then it's
That's just above and
from
beyond.
that 25.
Yeah,
feet.
the minimum is 6 feet from the property line for a side yard in every zone district.
Well, if Apple Blossom's got 25-foot setback from their back,
We're assuming that from what Greg said, right?
To the R2 overlay, again, I don't know when this was built, if that's grandfathered in. It doesn't look like it's quite 25 feet, but.
I don't think they were 25.
So these look like they may have gotten variances.
I thought you already said that was 25-foot setback.
These are off of Lilac. So Lilac and Apple Blossom, these are zoned different things.
Go back to the other picture. From the corner of that house to the property line there, what is that?
I couldn't tell you what that setback is. It looks like it's less than 25, but I don't know.
The one on the top's a lot closer than the ones on the bottom.
Yeah.
But that's the home that he still owns.
Yeah. So,
What's the
again,
width?
these setbacks here are not any different than what already exists.
Is Hanover Way also 30 feet?
No, it's 35, but that's because there's more than 10 homes.
And well, if those are drawn to scale, I don't know, but from the back of the Lilac over there, it looks pretty close to 25 if it's not.
Yeah. So, we just want to make that clear, that this lot, as it sits today, the owner obviously is wishing to sell it. They could sell it to somebody else, and they could do homes here if they tear down this house here to get access. This 6-foot side yard setback exists today. They would not have to go to planning and zoning, or they would not have to go to council to rezone it, not have to get a variance. They could already build that. So we're not recommending that these homes get any closer to the side yard.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sal. Are there any other questions by council members right now? Did you want to address the council? Yes, come on forward.
Glad to get that off.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Bob Ruth, and
You want
I'm
to pull the microphone down a little bit for you? There you go. Very good, thank you.
I'm Bob Ruth, and I live on Apple Blossom Lane, 1300. I'm the president of our condominium association. We didn't object to Hanover Place when it was first proposed, even though we're losing a lot of green space. We're in the city, we understand that.
there was a quaint little barn on there, probably 100-year-old log barn or outbuilding that, like I say, was a quaint thing, but we didn't object to it. This half acre is, to us, is like a pocket park. If you're familiar with those. I don't know whether we have those in Washington or not, but they have them in Clayton, where people have donated a parcel of land and to the city, and they maintained it. But some time back, John Florian, who lives on Lilac Lane, talked with Fran about whether she'd be interested in selling, and she wasn't, and so he dropped it. But his idea then and our idea now is to leave that as green space. We would collectively purchase it, and we can either maintain it because both Hanover and Apple Blossom have their lawns cut by groundskeepers, and another half acre wouldn't be any objection or any problem to maintain that once a week like we do all the rest of ours. When this original was proposed, it sounded to us like they were shoehorning 12 living quarters in a 2-acre space. We have 2 acres. We also have 12 units, but ours being more like a duplex, side by side, it leaves more ground open. We have a 25-foot setback in the front and back. In addition to that, we have 15 feet in the front utility easement. So from the front of my house to the curb is 40 feet. Theirs, I'm not sure. I've heard 18, whatever. Our street is 50 feet wide. There's, I think Sal just said 35. I thought it was 40, but anyway, whatever it is. My point is, if you go down Apple Blossom Lane and look, and then you go down Hanover, you can immediately feel the enclosing. And with society the way it is today, and people, you know, flaring up and what have you, I think it's not a good idea to compress people into smaller areas, and that's what we see with this proposal here. They're just adding more of this compressed kind of a thing. We would propose that, since we didn't know the property was for sale, nothing's been done other than just talk about it, but we'd like to see that green space stay as green space, as a pocket park, accessible to Hanover, to any of the surrounding neighbors. So if you, if it's approved, but for some reason it doesn't, the development doesn't go and doesn't, it's not developed, we again would like to come back and try to purchase that property and like I say, make it into a community park or green space.
Okay.
Have you spoken to the property owner about it at all?
Briefly, I had a conversation with her and assured her that there's no animosity on our part. She's, she owns the property. She can do what she wants with it. We have expressed, though, that we would like to keep it as green space, and we would be glad to, to do that. I'm not gonna quibble about dimensions, but all you have to do is drive down those streets and look. Like I say, we have 40 feet, they have 18 feet to the front of their buildings.
Okay.
We have 25 feet at the back. I'm not sure what they have. Somebody else would have to answer that. I heard 10 feet. I know this new proposal here, it's 10 feet. It's 10 feet to our line. I can't imagine that. I mean, if we'd put up a privacy fence, they'd bounce off their wall to our fence, it seems to me. So, I just think it's poor.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hello, Kim Davis, 1309 Apple Blossom. I was here last week and I addressed the council at that time, and I made a challenge to everyone to drive to Hanover Way and look at what is being proposed. After you physically drive there and see it, and not on paper, but physically drive there, let me know how you would feel if you were the house backing up to them, as my condo is and as my neighbor's is, and that is as far as from here to that wall. And see if you would want to continue to live in that area. Well, we brought up concerns about the road and would our fire trucks, our ambulance, those kind of safety equipment be able to get there? And I'm being told that it does pass code, but at some time or another, when you have a rule set, how many times can you ask for a variance on a rule before you don't have a rule any longer? So I just ask for you to take this into consideration, and please, please, I implore you to go visibly look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
My name is Mike Johns. I live at 610 Robert Street. I did go down there. These are my friends. And I went down there on their request, and they're totally correct. They're jamming this in there. If you haven't been down there, go down there and look. See where they're going to put these streets, and they're going to jam in 3 houses when they could probably just do 2. I think it would be fine. But yeah, actually go look at it. It's a small area. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I clarify something? There was a reference to a variance, and we are not discussing a variance. Is that correct? Everything is within, okay. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed something.
We're not debating that.
Okay, thank you.
So Sal, you can come back.
I was up here earlier. I'd just like to make one statement. I live in Hanover, and I like the idea. I like the road going in there to split things up a little bit. And the people I've talked to in Hanover, they all like it too. So that's
Okay.
my thoughts.
Thank you. Sal, there's discussion about a variance
Yes, so they still have to go to the Board of Adjustment, because when this was approved, it was a 10-foot in the rear, 15 feet in the front, I think is what the variance was for. They still have to get that on these lots. It was supposed to go last week, and obviously
Right.
it got moved to May 4th, or I'd have to check. We just sent out the new letters. They are requesting variances to match that, so it'll be 10 feet in the rear and then 18 feet in the front is what they're doing.
So they're requesting the variance so that they match what
What
else,
was-
the rest of the
That was in the senior community.
homes that are in the senior community that are already there.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
But again,
That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
the original recommendation from us was to go to planning and zoning, the next day go to Board of Adjustment, so it was all done by the time I got here, but obviously things changed, so.
Okay. And was that a variance, when Hanover Place was initially built, it was built as a senior,
Senior housing.
senior housing, and that
Well, the setbacks in the rear,
that measurement is what was because it was senior housing, right?
in the rear, yes, they
the
did get a
rear.
variance for the front yard.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay, Kurt, did you want to come back?
I just want to point out one other thing.
Let me drop you.
Back in, my memory's starting to slip a little bit. I don't remember what year. I want to say it was like 2008 or 9. My company did the work in Apple Blossom, and at the time, I'm a Knights of Columbus member. There was a lot of members that were upset about multifamily housing next to the KCs, and it's a big pristine piece of land in the city, and I assured the members of the Knights of Columbus that, you know, the R2 folks would be good neighbors. They're duplexes. They're going to be mostly, retirees and so on and so forth. So, again, I understand fears. Nobody likes change. To Jerry's point, all the folks, I couldn't be happier with the folks that purchased villa lots in there. It's a real quiet neighborhood. We do meet all the fire codes as far as access. We certainly wouldn't build anything less than what's required. There is a large green space to the east, and then obviously the Borgia Field is there. So there's a lot of green space there between the KCs, the Borgia High School, and the Cup land. So, if the city feels that we need more green space, I would think that we could maybe approach the Cup family and see if we can maybe acquire that land. If a community park is something that they're adamant that they want to do, I think that's a good idea. So, but anyway, like I said, I think we're just trying to follow what we built before, and we were really left with no alternative since there's no senior housing code. So this is why when they say there's a variance on a variance, well, it's because the code that was allowing it doesn't exist. So I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay.
Sal, if they did a PDR, could this be approved under a PDR?
No, because it's not large enough. They'd have to rezone.
Okay.
PDR requires 1.5 acres to even apply
Okay.
for it, and they have to get a variance for that to go smaller. So they could try and do the unbuilt ones up here, but then you're having a very odd-shaped spot zoning.
Just asking. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure, clarify for
Yeah, we went down that path, and we just thought this was probably the cleanest way to do it.
Any other questions or anything?
Make a mo-
Comments?
Make a motion to send it on.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Holtmeyer, seconded by Patke to accept this item into the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you accepted the item. Thank you.
An ordinance rezoning 1222 West 9th Street from R1A Single Family Residential to R1B Single Family Residential in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri.
Patke.
Introduced by Councilman Patke. This is the ordinance that follows the original item. Any questions or comments? Okay.
an ordinance rezoning 1222 West 9th Street from R1A Single Family Residential to R1B Single Family Residential in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Sullentrop,
Yes.
Wessels,
Aye.
Scornia,
Yes.
Pettit,
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Mayor, can we go back to 3B? It wasn't, when I read the
Yeah.
ordinance, it wasn't introduced. So we need to go back and introduce it, and then I need to go back and read it a second time and vote again.
Okay,
So moved.
well, are you going to read it again and introduce it?
Yes.
It needs to be introduced first.
Okay. So, you have to read it?
Got it, yep.
introduced.
Patke.
Patke's introduced it.
Thank you.
Okay,
An ordinance rezoning 102 East Second Street from R3 multifamily residential to C3 central commercial in the city of Washington, Franklin County, Missouri. Patke,
Nay.
Hydrich,
Nay.
Holtmeyer,
No.
Sullentrop,
No.
Wessels,
Nay.
Scornia,
No.
Pettit,
No.
Reed.
No.
by your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Failed that one.
We denied it.
We denied.
Or we denied it. By your vote, you deny the ordinance. All right.
Citizens' comments?
Okay, is there anyone here who would like to address the council on any item that is not on the agenda? Okay,
Do you have any? Report of department heads?
Okay, good evening, council. A couple things to give you updates on. First being the Rabbit Trail traffic study that was completed a couple weeks ago now. So as you are, I believe, aware that the city did go and get a traffic study for the intersection of Rabbit Trail, Phoenix Center Drive, and Highway 100. It was a fairly limited traffic study in its scope. Just looked at a couple different options. There are other options, I think, that are potentially there. It just was really main to get the data to kind of see, how the intersection's operating, level of service, those type of things. But there were a couple options that were identified. There will be a full report on that at a future date, but I did want to make a clarification that the access into Planet Fitness would remain full access in any
Under all
and any solution that would have to. That is its only access. So denying a left out of it would not be part of that. So I think there was some confusion regarding that. That was not in the traffic study. That was just a misspoken layer of that. So again, there'll be many more discussions on this. It's just the first one. I'm sure that you've all been approached by different stakeholders in the area, and we've also discussed with some potential solutions, and we're also looking for other ones. So just wanted to make that clarification to you all.
John, will
Yes,
that
sir.
return as these other possibles are considered?
Yeah.
Will that return to the traffic committee?
Yes, yeah. So if, we're looking at other things that is restricted access from Highway 100. There's some other ways maybe to get into some of these commercial locations, specifically Phoenix Center 1, Phoenix Center 2. There's some other options there. They do have to go through MoDOT. MoDOT would require a break in access, which is not something that can't be done. It's just something that is a difficult thing to do, and it is at the discretion of MoDOT to do so. We're evaluating those. We're discussing those with MoDOT. I sent it to them last week, so I don't have a response back from them yet. I know they were forwarded on to their traffic individuals. Once MoDOT essentially gives me some sort of let's look into this kind of response, then I will probably forward that on to our traffic engineer as well to kind of verify, is that a reasonable solution? So I don't have that yet, but yeah, that would definitely go back to the traffic committee. And, at the next traffic committee meeting, this is an agenda item as well. So we'll discuss, maybe some of those stakeholder concerns in that meeting. But right now, it's just a discussion item that I want to bring to your attention.
And if we don't hear from MoDOT, we'll just continue it on to the next traffic committee meeting.
Yeah, it is not,
There's not a definitive timetable for it.
Correct. And I think I may have used the word recommendation. Again, maybe inappropriately. It was not necessarily a recommendation to you all that we're going to move forward with a solution this year. It was more of, we want to present you with what we know and recommendation that we're going to continue this discussion because we do not deny that this intersection does need to be looked at as far as level of service and some potential safety issues.
Would you be okay with inviting all the stakeholders involved to this, I guess, the next traffic meeting when you're going to start discussing this?
We gave them the date and time.
We did, and we encourage them to come, just like we always do.
Yeah, I don't know if John stated it clear enough, but I mean, we did meet individually with
yes.
each one of the stakeholders.
And they were, to that, they were individually presented with the traffic study, a previous traffic study, and just a summary letter of what was going on. So when I say that, the commercial stakeholders, and then also we received a petition from the Lake Washington Condo Association. So they were presented with that as well. So the immediate people in the vicinity of the intersection were given notice of what was in the traffic study. And again, it did identify some of these concerns that they've already brought to us. So it's being done in a very transparent way. We just kind of got to get the discussion going. So,
Did you give a date for that, John? I didn't hear that.
What is
Count-
it?
are
The first
That's May 7th is
yeah.
the.
First Friday of
traffic
the month
First Friday of the month?
Yes, it's the first Friday of the month, 8 o'clock.
at 8 a.m.
Okay. If there's anything else, I'll move on to the next thing. Okay. We've had it's just a briefing, but we've had quite a few, really quite a few sewer backups over the past 6 months. That's really causing some issues with our sewer system. Just today, actually, we had a lift station go down, a pump went out, and some of the photos and some of the things that were in this lift station tend to be like baby wipes, not necessarily paper material, more of a, the flushable hand wipe type situation. So the Board of Public Works at the last meeting wanted me to start a kind of a public campaign, I guess, information campaign, to say that just because something can get flushed in a toilet does not mean it should be flushed in a toilet. No different than, banana peels or anything like that. So those are causing some major issues in our sewer system. I don't know if, for example, a baby wipe, they get hung up on everything. They're kind of more of you can't rip it in half. Those things tend to get clogged up on any joints. So that's causing some major issues. I did today put out a little Facebook blurb. It was similar to the one we did last March when paper products were hard to come by. But I just wanted to kind of get that out there to you all, let you know that those are the vast majorities of the things that we're seeing clogging up our sewer system. I cannot force people to not put things in a manhole, in a toilet, those things. And if those are causing our issues, there's not a whole lot that I can do other than either A, look at different resources to jet sewer lines, which is money, which is sewer rates, these things. So I'm pleading more than anything to, or appealing to the public to understand that toilet paper, those type of things are acceptable. Anything, Matchbox cars, any of those type of things. Rock, I've seen shoes. I've seen a lot of things. Keep those out of the sewer system, and those include baby wipes and any other thing that is not a paper product. Any questions? Not glamorous, but I'm telling you, this is vitally important. So, last thing I had.
Biodegradable.
What's that? Biodegradable. Yes.
Biodegradable.
Looking for words that are glamorous. Anyway, airport update. The plans are basically 99%. They've been sent to MoDOT just to start the paperwork process. Programming is kind of what it's called. It is an 8-bay hangar with 2 alternates. Alternate number 1 would add 2 more to make it a 10-bay. Alternate number 2 would be another 2, which would make it a 12-bay, 8, 2, 2. So depending on really what the contracting community, how hungry are they for work, how good the bids come in, and really material prices right now is probably going to dictate what we can afford. I'm not confident that we can afford a whole lot just because the material market is outrageous. With that being said, the MoDOT did essentially pledge that they would fund an additional dollars. I don't know if you recall me telling you that, but they did put some additional dollars from the St. Clair Airport to pay for this, to make it more available to us to get the project done. However, that was capped at a dollar number. So really, we're kind of at the mercy of the bids once it does go out to bid. But I want to keep you aware that there was some excitement at this being a 10, 12 bay. I don't know where the bids are going to come in at. They can be added on to in the future relatively easily. So it's set up in a way that it could be phase 1, phase 2 could come in the future. But right now, it's going to be bid as an 8 bay with 2 alternates, a 10 and a 12. Hopefully, we'll see some movement from MoDOT on that, approving those plans maybe in the next 4 weeks. Get them out to bid.
How about MoDOT's approval of High Street? Has that come in yet?
I'm sorry, what was?
High Street?
Yeah, MoDOT's approval of High Street. So we are working right now with MoDOT to get the pre-construction meeting completed. That request was sent out last Tuesday. I still don't have a response. That's literally a meeting, and it was a week ago. Once that's done, pre-construction meeting happens, then we can give the notice to proceed, then construction can start. Quite honestly, it's moving into summertime. May not be the worst thing that ever happened, but there was a delay due to COVID concerns at the state level.
Okay.
So,
John, the vandalism to the lights over at the airport
yep,
been taken care of?
not a good thing. Yeah, we approved a contract with our supplier to get the lights reprogrammed. If anyone doesn't know where there was $20,000+ of damage to the lighting system at the airport. Somebody came off of the adjacent county road, drove through the field, and ran over a bunch of our lights. That was about a month ago, 6 weeks ago. So we turned it into insurance. I think there is a $10,000 deductible on that. And we've not, I don't think, found who's done it yet. But we do need to get those lights up and running. They're currently being programmed right now. I don't have a schedule about when they can get put back up, but it's fast-tracked to get it back up and running. But that did cause $10,000 in damage with our deductible. We did put up 2 additional security cameras at the airport. I do not believe this would have caught that individual because they did come off the farm fields. The farm fields have been planted, or they should be planted here in the next month. Those things typically go down because you can't really access through a 200 acres of cornfield. So it changes things a little bit. How do you prevent in the future? I don't know, fencing. That's not wise. It's not wise, probably. You got to maintain fencing. You got to mow around it. You got to flood concerns, access concerns with the farmers. There's just a lot of other things. I think it's just an unfortunate thing that happened. So.
Any other questions of John? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ordinance resolutions, an ordinance accepting the bid from Jim Chineri Motorsports, Inc. for the purchase of a 2021 Pioneer 700 EPS.
Introduced by Councilman Holtmeyer.
Okay, I'll give you a briefing here. Kevin Hellman is here tonight, so there's his face. I haven't seen him in a while. But I can go through this, Kevin, or if you want to.
Oh, you got it.
Okay, perfect. So Kevin, last year in our budget process, just identified to me that we don't really have a good vehicle to check the runway, basically do any work over there. It's actually, he was utilizing his personal vehicle to do so, which I think anyone could see that that's not a wise thing. So we did put this in the budget to get him essentially a UTV. The current plane, I guess, I don't know what you call it,
Tow tug?
The tow tug?
The tow tug, there you go, sorry. Yes, the current plane tow tug is I think it's like an early 2000s yard tractor type thing.
1990.
There you go,
Garden
1990s.
tractor.
Even older. So this vehicle would take place of that. It would just replace it. It would be a current tow tug. Kevin researched it with all the other airports. It's actually a belt, or not a belt driven, it's a gear driven machine, which is a lot different. I don't know if anyone's ever driven a UTV, but they tend to be jumpy with a belt. So this is actually a gear driven machine. And then he could utilize it doing his daily airport checks, anything that the airport maybe needs, rather than his own personal vehicle. I think everyone could support that. We did get 2 bids. One was non-responsive. This is Jim Trineri. That is, I think, in Union, which is fairly close to us, so that's a positive. And it did come in under budget.
Yes.
Yep, fire away.
Any questions?
Airport's busy, right? Is that?
It's doing well. I hope everybody's happy with what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just here to answer the questions if anybody's got anything. The tow tug, like he said.
Kevin, can you take down your mask?
Oh, am I allowed to do that? Okay. The tow tug that we have, it's a 1990. We maintain it well, but the compression's getting when you start pulling bigger airplanes, it don't want to do it no more.
Lawnmower, isn't it?
Pardon me?
That's what it is.
Just a lawnmower, isn't it?
It is just a lawnmower, Steve, but to replace that lawnmower, I did that bid, it was $9,400 and some dollars. So for just a little bit extra, we get a utility vehicle, and they'll make it to what we want with all the lights and everything, so.
Would this have the capability for you, is it just like an ATV that you sit on, or is it different?
Oh, no, it's a two-man.
Side-by-side.
Side-by-side, Polaris 700.
So you could throw a blade on if you needed to.
Throw what?
Push snow if you had to.
If we had to, but with the tractor that you guys purchased, the bucket, it's doing well. We did have to, because of the snow we had this year, the city did do the runway, but.
Using the tractor to do daily runway checks is
Yeah.
not very good.
You guys own almost a mile of concrete over there. And I mean, you go from one end, especially if you're there by yourself trying to do something, there's nobody at the other end. And on that little lawnmower, 4 miles an hour, do the math, it takes about 15.
It takes a while.
It takes a while.
It's a good sales job there.
But
That's good.
other than that, if you got any questions?
Can you chase down somebody who wants to run over your lights with this thing?
I would love to chase the person down that did that, but like he mentioned, they did come in on the Warco side. Can't stop them. I understand that people that own property on that end are installing cameras too. So, I hope so. Anyway.
Keep up good work.
Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Yep.
An ordinance accepting the bid from Jim Trineri Motorsports, Inc. for the purchase of a 2021 Pioneer 700 EPS. Patke,
Yes.
Heidrich,
Hold on. Did you get somebody to introduce it?
Holtmeyer,
Yeah, Holtmeyer did.
Thanks.
Making sure.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
sullentrop,
Yes.
Wessels,
Aye.
Scornia,
Yes.
Pettit,
Aye.
Reed.
Yeah.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission Transportation Alternatives Fund supplemental agreement.
Sullentrop.
Introduced by Councilman Sullentrop.
Okay. All right. I'll try to be brief, but I might have to give you a little history here. So, back in 2017, I believe, Sal, myself, and Andrew put together an application to essentially build what's called the Bush Creek Greenway. I think the original concept of that was actually to be along Bush Creek from Jefferson all the way to East Fifth. This is not that entire process. There's a portion of this that is off-street. There's a portion of this that is on-street. This also provides a connection to the Washington High School or school campus to our downtown facility. So it just, it's pretty vitally important pedestrian corridor and has that potential. At the same time, or pretty much at the same time, the city was purchasing the Frykes Trailer Court. I think it was actually done prior to when the application was put in for this Transportation Alternative Program grant, okay? So that's somewhere, you can kind of see my cursor, somewhere right here, this New Life Church, Google Maps here. But we made that aware to MoDOT immediately, that area was purchased prior to this grant application, okay? So it was not done in accordance with their right-of-way acquisition procedures. They have a very specific way that you acquire right-of-way. You have to get two different appraisals. You got an appraisal, you got to get an appraisal that supports the original appraisal. It's pretty lengthy process. This property was not acquired doing that, okay? It was acquired with our own purchasing policy, but not MoDOT and federal requirements for federal projects. So we made MoDOT aware of that. They knew about that. Didn't really seem to be an issue with that. We felt that the only concern that we would have is potentially, worst case, that the ground that was purchased outside those confines would have to be funded at 100%. So it's an 80-20 cost share. City pays 20 cents on the dollar for the project. But this area, we felt, right here, would be the only area that if everything did not go to plan, would be at 100%. The remaining would still be 80-20. It's just this may have to be funded with 100% local dollars, provided MoDOT had an issue with it later on down the road, okay? However, MoDOT said they would not have an issue. Now, here we are, getting ready to get this project underway, and now MoDOT has an issue with the project. So they are essentially stating that anything west of Sunnyside, this is Sunnyside right here, Washington High School's right here, okay? Anything west of Sunnyside, from this location, this is all off-street, all the way over here. Since this ground was acquired with outside the right-of-way acquisition funds of MoDOT, this entire corridor cannot utilize 80-20 funding. It has to be 100% funded. That is news to us as of a month ago, basically. What this ordinance does is it modifies the programming agreement and reduces the amount of money they're going to put towards the project, okay? They were initially going to put in $580,162 towards the project. Again, 80-20, okay? That's 80% of the dollars is being federally funded. This ordinance, this agreement, reduces that down to $415,000. So what that means is MoDOT will participate up to $415,177 for this project. The scope of work stays the same, okay? The 10-foot shared use path, the spur up to Washington High School, the 10-foot shared use path east of Sunnyside to 47, then it goes on street, then it goes, it goes so on and so forth. The total project cost estimate right now is $725,000. This reduces that down to $415,000, so that remainder. I also got a grant from Franklin County Transportation of $60,000. Okay, so that's 100%. They're going to give us that money towards it. So in Andrea's letter here, the remaining balance on this project that the city would have to fund for this would be $250,026. She had an error in her calculation there, which brings it to a 65-35 rather than an 80-20. Okay, it's still a pretty good deal. It's still a really good deal. It still provides an east-west connection. In my opinion, one of the most important places that we need one in town, with the school campus not really having any access to the downtown facilities. I mean, drive it any day. You'll just drive Sunnyside. You could see the paths outside the pavement edge. It provides those kids an opportunity to get from point A to point B. In addition, what's changed, since everything from Jefferson to Sunnyside is off-street along Bush Creek, which is a big amenity. McBride had that in their kind of understanding. Everything east of Sunnyside to 47 is also off-street. Well, all the sidewalks were replaced by MoDOT along 47 all the way to the bridge. Okay, so there's a secondary connection that this thing will loop around. I'm just as disappointed as anyone is, and I hope I explained that clear enough regarding how this happened. But if you don't approve this agreement, this project is not funded by MoDOT. It's a done project, okay, unless we want to fund it 100%. It's a 65-35. It's still a pretty good deal to get the job done.
Just as a reminder for the council, this Bush Creek Greenway's been identified in your bicycle and pedestrian facilities plan ever since we adopted our first one back in the late 90s.
Oh, didn't even know.
So it's been a project that's been on the radar for quite some time. And like I said, and we still anticipate that there's opportunities along the corridor where we can go ahead and remove it off of the roadway in the future as development occurs. But as of right now, this is what we have to work with on the first phase.
And it's a 10-foot concrete shared use path, just generally speaking again.
It's 10 foot wide,
10 foot wide,
concrete.
concrete. Yes, sir.
But you know, this has been going on for so long. Have you been putting money back at all for it?
We've got the funding there,
Oh, yeah.
in transportation, that's not a problem. It's just making you aware that
No.
we've got to go back, you're changing this, formula for how much they fund and how much we're responsible.
Let me,
15% more.
well, let me clarify though. I mean, you asked, since we've known it's been going on, we did not know that they were going to reduce everything west of Sunnyside, take it out.
Oh,
We did
yeah.
not know that till a month ago.
Right. But
And we are-
Darren was saying that it's been in the plan since the 90s. And
Oh, yeah. And we, yeah, I mean, the transportation fund, I mean, could support this. Again, we got $60,000 from the Franklin County Transportation Fund, which is another funding source. So, I mean, we've kind of attacked this multiple ways. What I typically like to do is when we get these 80-20 projects is go to Franklin County to fund the remaining 20% or a portion thereof, which is what I was initially doing here. Unfortunately, in this case, it really offsets some of these additional costs that were not anticipated. Does that make sense?
Is it, when you say through transportation, is it through our transportation tax?
Correct. Your transportation sales tax dollars.
Yeah.
And I would add just one more thing too, that our, staff's kind of overall concept of sidewalks and pedestrian facilities through town is not necessarily to put a sidewalk in front of everyone's home. That's not, I don't think that's a wise thing to do. It's to maintain current sidewalks, but it's to connect subdivisions, smaller communities, to provide some sort of a north, south, east, west connection. And again, connecting that school to the facilities that you have, I still believe is vitally important, especially when it makes a loop to the bridge. I just think it just pulls everything kind of together.
Any questions or comments?
An ordinance authorizing and directing the execution of a Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission Transportation Alternatives Fund supplemental agreement. Packey,
Yes.
Hydrich,
Aye.
Holtmeyer,
Aye.
Sullentrop,
yes.
Wessels,
Aye.
Scornia,
Yes.
Pettit,
Aye.
Reed.
Yes.
By your vote, you approve the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commission, committee, and board reports. Preliminary plat approval for Hanover Place.
This is just the plat that goes along with the development we talked about earlier, to add these two lots to this in the right-of-way for the street. It's not a final plat. They'll still have to come back with another ordinance after the variance. If the Board of Adjustment approves it and they get an escrow in with engineering, they can come back with a final plat.
The only thing I would add to this is that since the drawing that is within your packet does not continue, as John said earlier, we would not issue building permits if the road wasn't built, but I think for preliminary plat purposes, we need to identify the fact that that roadway is going X number of feet further to the west as part of these preliminary improvement plans, and that we're not approving what's shown right there.
And we can just reflect that in the minutes because the final plat will have to require that, because we're not accepting an ordinance or anything tonight.
Yeah. I have nothing else to add.
Okay, are there any questions or comments regarding the preliminary plat? Not, we'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Patke, seconded by Holtmeyer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the plat. Thank you.
Mayor's report.
This evening, since we're starting a new, I guess we'd call that an election year or whatever, it's time to have assignments for committees and boards and commissions. And we do not have the current list in your packet, but Sherry's going to email that to you tomorrow. And so just let me know what you're interested in. I've heard from a couple of you, but not from all of you. So just let me know what you might be interested in, and then we'll do the reassignments of what's going on.
Have it at the May meeting.
We'll have it at the May meeting then, so. you could take a look at that and let me know. Okay? All right. And that's really all I have.
City Administrator's report?
I just have a couple items. As you see listed there, we've got we'd like to do a special workshop at 6 p.m. at the second meeting in May, prior to your city council meeting. Purpose of that would be twofold. We've received the preliminary results back from the salary study plan with our consultant, Austin Peters. We anticipate that we will have, we'll be to the point where we'll be able to go ahead and present those findings to you at that meeting, just so you guys have any questions of the consultant. They're not going to be able to be here physically, but they're going to be here through a web conference to go ahead and answer any questions that you may have for her as she presents that material. And then our goal is to go ahead and move forward with that, depending upon, as you know, we start our budget process at the end of this month, and so the goal would be is to go ahead and see what we have to do to present that for the budget October 1st. I'm sorry?
When is it?
When is the meeting? The special meeting would be May 17th at 6 p.m. That would be the first item we'd like to discuss with you. We anticipate that would probably take about a half hour. Then the second half hour of that, what we'd like to do is present, I've requested from all the department heads their recommendations for, I sent out an email with the criteria for the American Recovery Act funds of 2021. There's some criteria there that they have to go ahead and you can't just spend these funds any which way you want, although there is some broad categories that we can do. But I've asked the department heads to go ahead, give me their lists of what they would like to see for their departments, and what category it falls in, when they'd like to project to go ahead and use the funds, or when they'd be available to use them, and then get those back. We can go ahead and review those as staff, and then bring a recommendation to you at that meeting on May the 17th. In the meantime, I will go ahead and send you all the same information I sent out to the department heads, so you can see the criteria that they're looking at. And then if you have projects that you feel that are identified that we have not funded yet, whether that's not through capital improvement sales tax or something else that you feel is important, and if it fits the criteria, we can take a look at that, certainly, to go ahead and to see. But the idea is to kind of identify those projects, and I've asked staff, I've already had a couple of department heads give me some of their information back for that. But I'll share that with you so you know what the criteria is that we can utilize the funds for. And we have approximately a little less than 2.6 million coming our way.
Any questions?
Okay.
Sherry, I wanted to mention also, on Thursday is the dedication of the monument at our city cemetery. So that's at 5 o'clock on Thursday, so hope that you all can make it. Anyway, so it's at 5 p.m., probably will last maybe about 30 minutes or so. But anyway, we're hoping to have a nice crowd there. Hopefully the weather will be okay. So.
Is this Historical Society having a meeting on the 17th?
They're supposed to, so if we need to move it, we can move it. Yeah, we'll change location.
All right.
We'll probably keep the council here. We'll see where we can go ahead and move them. Yeah, if they need to, they can either kick it back a month, or we can talk to the library and utilize their meeting space over there too.
All right.
Okay, that's it.
That's all I have.
Mayor, is that dedication, is that where you pull in right by the KC and then you?
It is. It's a little bit further along there. It's on this side of the Wildly Oddfellows Cemetery. There's a road there that goes into it, but most of it will probably take place kind of close to the street there, because the sign is, close to the street, obviously.
All right.
We're going to have a few chairs, and we'll have a tent as well, a small tent. So. Okay.
Council comments?
Any council comments this evening?
I would just like to give you kudos, Captain, for all your hard work, for all your staff, trying to get our town cleaned back up. derelict vehicles, debris, junk. Thank you so much. Thanks for staying on it. And John, thank you for looking at Rabbit Trail, and we need to, this is something that we've needed to do for a long time. So this is something, hopefully we can push on MoDOT for some help with that as well. Thank you.
Anyone else?
None, I do have a couple items we need to address in executive session.
Okay. Last item of information is the citywide trash pickup. Bulk pickup.
Last week of April.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
City Attorney's report, public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and real estate matters pursuant to Section 610.021 RSMO 2000. Patke?
Yes.
Hydrich?
Yes.
Holtmeyer?
Aye.
Sullentrop?
Yes.
Wessels?
Aye.
Scornia?
Yes.
Pettit?
Aye.
Reed?
Yep.
Okay, we are adjourned.